Coaches, welcome to the United Basketball and Leadership Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We are honored that you would take the time to listen to this podcast. We're also proudly sponsored by my good friends at Dr. Dish. Reach out to Dr. Dish, mention the United Basketball Podcast, and receive a great discount on the best shooting machines in the world. Also, coaches, if you weren't able to attend this year's Hoosier Gym Clinic with Phil Beckner, Mark Cassio, Tyler Costner, Rob Jones, and many more speakers, it's actually over 8 hours of content and 10 sessions. Go to the show notes, find the link, enter the coupon United Podcast, and save $10 on the Hoosier Gym Clinic video. Coaches, I can't wait for you to hear what our guest has to share with us today. Enjoy the podcast. I want to welcome Lee Taft, known as the Speed Guy, to the United Basketball and Leadership Podcast. Thanks so much for coming on, Lee.
Oh, Matt, it's a pleasure. I was so excited you asked me to be a part of it.
No, this is good. I try to have a wide variety of topics, and this is a topic that I've never even come close to hitting or talking to anyone about. And years and years ago, you did a PGC event at Hillgrove High School in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I was one of the volunteers at that event.
Yeah.
A long time ago. I know you probably don't remember me and my friend Gant. But anyway, so that's when I first really connected with you and try to follow you over time. But, you know, I'd want to dive into this because as a high school basketball coach myself, we're all trying to figure out how can we be better, how can we build better agility, be faster, be quicker, whatever it may be. So first of all, what led you to being so passionate about this topic?
You know, it's funny. You know how you've heard this before in sport in general, but especially in strength and conditioning, which I'm in, is kind of the big guys. They like the weight room because they express what they're good at, right? Well, I'm not a very big guy. I'm 5'10", but I was always really quick and fast. So I was always fascinated by speed and quickness. And even back in the 80s, I started watching film. And I watched film of other athletes. I watched old timers film, and I even watched film of me moving because I wanted to see if how I was moving was what it felt like. You know, I wanted to know what my feet were doing. So I was just so curious as to how can we become better and more efficient to make athletes like myself, who's not very big, not gifted with great size and strength, and I've got more quickness than I do speed, and that bodes very well for the basketball court. I don't have to run the 100 really well. I just have to be quick in my short distances. So it was just like a curiosity, and I really enjoyed it. Plus, I grew up in a coaching family, so I was always around it. My dad and my brothers were coaches and ADs and administrators, so I was always in that environment. And so it just led me to wanting to learn more and more and study it. And I've had a really good career over the last 32 years of working on speed development.
So your, Lee Taft branding and you travel around the country, the world. Do you have a facility where people actually can come and train with you at a home base, or are you mainly mobile as you work with teams and athletes?
Yeah, more so now. I'm more mobile. I travel, but over the years, I've owned 5 facilities called the Lee Taft Speed Academy. And I'm from New York, so I had a couple there, and then we moved to Indiana. We did some there. And right now, actually, the space that I'm in talking to you is what we call the speed cave. It's my 2-car garage, but it doesn't look like a garage. It's got all the ply aerobic flooring, and I've got all the bells and whistles and stuff to be able to train in here. So every now and again, like I'll get athletes from IMG, because we live in Florida now. They're about an hour north of us. They'll drive down. Or I had a couple basketball players, a couple brothers flew in from Texas to spend a couple days with me and evaluate. One was a college player, the other one was a high-level high school player. So I do a lot of that. And then we'll have people come to us, like we run these retreats, and people will spend some time with us. And so I use my little garage here as kind of my training headquarters.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Well, let's just dive straight into, as basketball coaches are listening to this,
Let's do it.
what are some things we're doing wrong? I mean, honestly, because I see things. I mean, is it the ladder? Is it jump roping? Is it like what are we doing that just doesn't give us a lot of return
Sure.
on the effort?
Sure. Well, the one thing that, and the reason I think I can speak relatively competently on this is because I've made all the mistakes, and I can't, it's hard to say mistakes. It's more like better or worse choices. You know what I mean? There's
Right.
always a bet. Like we say that to our players, right? Say, oh, you can get a better shot than that. It's not like they didn't have the shot. It just wasn't a great shot or at that time. Training athletes and basketball players is kind of the same way. So when I was younger, it was way more common. Now it's still there, but a lot of teams like to run mileage. They like to have their athletes run mileage. So if we look at that and we say, well, all right, if they're going to run mileage, they're probably going to get in better shape for running mileage, right? And they do get better at that. But then we say, does that really transfer well? And we know that it doesn't transfer that well. And here's why. Because just like you, Matt, if you look at an offense, if you're scouting, or maybe you went to a clinic and somebody taught you an offense and you look at it and you say, yeah, that's great if I have a 6'9" post player and a point guard that can beat anybody in front of them, right? If you have players like we sometimes have to get, you gotta cultivate an offense for them so they can get a shot or get a pass.
Right.
Training is the same way. So I could have my athletes run distance. They're going to get better at running distance, but that doesn't mean they're going to get better at movement in basketball, because what happens when we run distance? Okay. Number one, we typically have less than adequate running technique, because when I run distance, my arms tend to stay close to my body. They don't move real far. I tend to run on my heels more because I'm not going very fast, especially if I'm running like 2 miles. I don't want to go that fast because I'll never make it. So my mechanics aren't as effective or efficient. And I'm also spending way too much time on the ground. So if I want to be explosive in basketball and I want to be quicker, I need to be able to strike the ground faster. I need to have better mechanics. I need to at some time run like a track athlete coming out of the blocks. I need to get out on that fast break, or I need to catch somebody from behind or not get caught from behind. So I need to have basic ideas of how to accelerate and then reaching, some maximal speeds, not complete maximal speeds on a basketball court, but we'll get there close. So that's one mistake that I see commonly made. And the energy system that's trained does benefit my aerobic system. Okay. And I do need an aerobic system that can help me, right? But because I don't ever just stay at that lower level heart rate throughout the entire game, I need to be able to have higher intensity bouts, and then I need to know how to recover and then come right back and do it again. Maybe the ball gets kicked out of bounds. Okay, now I've got maybe 10 seconds. By the time the player gets it back in, I got to go hard again. So those are the mistakes we make. It's about choices. Okay, I can have one choice which might do something. The other choice, which is to train faster and quicker, is a much better option. So those are the areas that I look at. Some of the other ones, and it kind of goes in line with that, is if we tell an athlete to get in a defensive stance and we tell that athlete to get really low, like to really bend their knees and get way down low because we were told that, right? We were taught that. Well, in many cases, what that does is it slows the athlete down, because the deeper I get, the more muscular energy I'm going to have to use, because it's hard. It's hard to get down really low. If I stay a little bit higher, but still have my knees bent, all of a sudden I start using this different type of energy. We call it elastic energy. It's like really quick. It's like when you see, Russell Westbrook get on a tear and all of a sudden he puts his foot in the ground and next thing you know, he's 10 feet in the other direction. That's elastic energy. That's not power. That's just pop and go. So I tell my athletes, we want to bend our knees so that we're athletic, we can move efficiently and effectively and protect ourselves. How low you go or how high you are is going to be based on your ability and your genetics, because not everybody's the same. So those are a couple examples, Matt, of things that I think we have to adjust to, because I don't want to make my players slower. So I don't want to run a lot of distance stuff. And I don't want to make them slower when I'm moving multi-directional or lateral, because I don't want to get them too low. So there's a couple examples of how immediately we can make them faster, just making better choices there.
So an adage that, again, I've said a million times in my coaching career is the low man wins. So you're saying that's not necessarily the case. So a lot of times we tell a defensive player, you've got to be lower than the offensive player in order to guard them or stay in front of them. So that is not necessarily accurate.
Not if contact isn't part of it. So let's say you and I are in the post, and we'll say, for example, let's say you're 6'5" and I'm 6'1", and you're, 225 and I'm 195, right? If I get high, you're going to put me right under the rim. Okay. But if I get a little bit lower than you and we make contact, okay, if I can stay somewhere down around your legs with my hips, you're just going to have a hard time moving. So in that case, yes, defensively, we need to get lower. But if I need speed, and the reason sprinters don't squat when they run, like they don't get really low, they get up nice and tall and spring, it's because it's elastic, is less time spent on the ground. So from a defensive shuffle, I can't be too high because I'm just not going to be able to move very, effectively if I have to change directions. But I can't be too low because it takes me too long to straighten my legs out that are bent that low. Right. Now, some athletes can do it. Okay, you take a Muggsy Bogues. I remember Muggsy. He was already short, but he was very comfortable bending his knees almost to 90 degrees. Michael Jordan bent his knees, maybe 30 degrees, 40 degrees. He didn't even get to 45 sometimes because he was very elastic and he took advantage of that ability. I was like that. I was very, very elastic. I was okay if I got lower, but I was quicker if I found that middle, almost like a jump shot depth, right? I'm not too deep, but yet I bent my knees. I was just very quick in that depth because it allowed me to rely on that elastic response. You kind of move like a water bug. You can move very, very quickly.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for breaking those scenarios down. Well, let's talk about the difference between speed and agility. I go through your website, I'll look at your social media. Those are two terms that jump out: speed and agility. Yeah. So let's talk about, and you have a little bit already, let's talk about improving a basketball player's speed, and then let's transition into the agility portion.
Awesome. That's a really good question because it's misunderstood, right? We just throw that word out there, agility, and change of direction and speed, and we're not quite sure. And that's okay, for people who aren't doing it as a business. But for me, if I'm training speed, it could be linear speed, it could be vertical, how fast can I jump? It could be, running the court, it could be whatever it is. Speed is just how fast can I get my velocity up, my miles per hour. Okay, so a defensive shuffle, one of my assessments is a 7-yard lateral shuffle. That's roughly the baseline to about another 2 feet above the foul line. Right about there is about 7 yards, just to give the listeners a reference point. And so what I do is I have my players start there and shuffle as fast as they can. And I'm timing them. So they might take like 1.8 seconds, let's say. So my goal, if I can get them down to 1.5, they're faster now. Now they can guard somebody that might be trying to blow by them, but hasn't yet, and they can still stay in their shuffle. If they get beat, now they go to the lateral run, right? That's speed, okay? Or how quickly can I go from, we just got the rebound, and I'm the 4 running the middle, right? I'm the rim runner. How fast can I get to the rim? How many miles per hour can I reach? That's speed. Agility has to do with reactions, has to do with perception. So let's say my point guard throws the ball to me on the wing, and you were in help position. Now you close out on me really quick, and all of a sudden I give you a shot fake, a jab to the baseline, and then I go middle. You have to use agility, which is some sort of change of direction to now match me and react to what I did. The more you and I play, let's say you and I grew up together in the parks and we were playing, you would eventually start to figure out, okay, Lee likes to do this move. He catches, he shot fakes, he jabs one way to get me moving, and then goes the other way. you are now becoming more perceptive in using your agility because you can react better to my move. So you learn it. That's why good players seem faster sometimes than they really are. Larry Bird was not known for his being the fastest guy, right? But he was always in the right position defensively. He was phenomenal at being 2 steps ahead because he had great predictability, great anticipation. And that's what good agility is. It's being able to read it, react, and then make a movement. As we're speed, just how fast can you do it? Just whatever the drill is, how fast, how much speed can you gain, and how much velocity can you get up to? So those are the differences between agility and speed.
Okay. So I'm a coach. I want to speed my players up, make my players faster. What are some tangible ways I can do that? You know, if I don't have a ton of equipment and I just, I've got the basic things, and how much does weight training and weightlifting play a role into this?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me go from the first question. So when I was a high school coach, I coached my daughters, and back in the 80s and early 90s, I coached boys in New York. And then when my daughters got into it, I started coaching the girls game. And so my teams in the off season, we sprinted 2 times a week. And then in the in season, we sprinted once every 7 to 8 days so that they maintain their maximal speed. When we maximally sprint, we build several things. We get faster, but we build stronger, more stiffness, which is a good term in this case, in their foot and their ankle and their lower leg, which means they get off the ground quicker, whether they're sprinting, jumping, or changing direction. So that's a positive of it. Now, when we sprint, Matt, all you have to do is roughly 30 yards and do it about 3 to 4 times and give them a nice long rest in between. So I'd make them sprint. So if I was in a gym, I would go, so if you look at a basketball court, I would go out of bounds on the corner, like the sideline and baseline, all the way out of bounds on one corner, and we'd sprint to the opposite corner out of bounds. And if the gym was big enough, there was enough room where I could get just about 30 yards. If not, good weather, if we can get outside, we'll do it there. But we only sprint about 3 to 4 times maximally, 100% effort. We give them about 2.5 to 3 minute rest in between. We would shoot foul shots, or we would do some ball handling in between. Then we'd come back, do it again. And that's all we need to tap into the nervous system to get them faster. Once we're in season, all I had to do was touch on it once about every 7 to 8 days. We might get 2 to 3 maximal sprints. That was it. My girls were always fast. All my boys, anybody I trained, I followed that. But I don't have to do a lot of it. Now, strength training, if I have, let's say you have players, let's say you got a young guard or a young post player, and they just can't seem to get that explosive first step. Like they try and they're trying to push, and they just don't seem to go anywhere on that first push. A lot of times that is a weight to strength issue, which is what we'll call relative strength. Okay, so it's my body weight versus how strong I am. So if I was wicked strong and I only weighed 150 pounds, I could explode because I'm not moving a lot of weight. But let's say I was really strong, but I weighed 250. Okay, well now that's 100 pounds more body weight I got to move. So I have to be relatively stronger. So all you have to do with strength training is if you can improve their relative strength. So get their hips, their legs, their lower legs, their feet, upper body is great to have strong because they're going to use their upper body a lot. If they just have good general strength, they now can apply more force into the ground for running, but upper body strength to post somebody up, to hold them off on a box out. Or if you and I both grab the ball, if I have enough grip strength and shoulder strength, maybe I can rip that ball away from you pretty quickly and then make the next play.
So a couple of thoughts I had. I'll go back to my first thought. Is it counterproductive when a coach does sprints that has them constantly stopping and changing directions, like the suicide or, sideline to sideline, that we want them to sprint, but you're stopping after, 5, 10, 12 yards and changing directions? A sprint should be from point A to point B and in, correct? Are you looking to take your game preparation to the next level? Then Fast Model Sports is the perfect coaching software for you. With Fast Draw, build an organized library of plays and drills and create professional playbooks to share with your players and staff. You can also download over 9,000 free plays and drills from our play bank directly to your Fast Draw account. Need a better way to build your scouting reports? With Fast Scout, build custom scouting report templates to prepare your team to be the best against their opponents. The combination of Fast Draw and Fast Scout is the best way for you and your coaches to create winning game strategies and effective communication. Use code UBC2021, that's UBC2021, to get 15% off any Fast Draw and Fast Scout products.
Yeah. If you're going to sprint, so we build in sprint training, which you can do without fear of, overloading. You and I talked before this call about, knee injuries and dealing with surgeries, right? Well, some athletes, what happens is if they do so much change of direction all the time, plus they're playing and they're always changing direction, sometimes the knees just take a beating. They get tendonitis, they get soreness. Some of the younger players get the Osgood sliders starting to develop, that big bump on the bottom of the knee. And so if we sprint, that's just using elastic energy. It's free energy. It's really good stuff. But we do have to train the change of direction. But that's a separate time. That's a separate skill. That's to make me more adept at changing direction. If you're a good ball handler and you can go, in a zigzag really fast, well, I have to be pretty good defensively to handle that. So we do want to train that, but the problem, Matt, is coaches, they intertwine the two. Like they say, hey, we're going to get you faster, and we're going to run the UCLA slap drill or the suicide drill or whatever it is, up and down. Well, that's not, that's conditioning. And conditioning is important, but we want to separate. It's just like if you said, hey, we're going to work on offense right now, but every possession, all your assistant coaches do is talk about defense. Well, you're like, no, wait a minute, that's the next segment. Let's focus right now on offense. So it's the same thing. We got to give the body the chance to grow in whatever variable we're training. And
then the other point is you were talking about, weight to strength ratio, I guess it was. Yeah. Mainly what I gather from that, and I could be wrong, is you're really working on strengthening the big muscles, squats, bench press, back, the larger muscle groups to help get to that point, correct?
That's such an easy way to start. It is, they're called compound exercises. So if I did a squat, gosh, think how many muscles are involved. Everything, just in order to keep my body upright, my back has to work. My neck has to work. My shoulders are working. Obviously, my hips and my thighs and my feet are working like crazy to proprioceptively feel where I am. So that's just such a big bang exercise, and it's so it just, if we did a good squat, and maybe even if we did a push-up or a bench press or a dumbbell press, something like that, those are a lot of muscle. Even a vertical press, like standing vertical press. Now I'm using a lot of my muscles throughout the whole body. So I don't have to do all the additional stuff like, bicep curls and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with them, but we don't have to spend a lot of time in the weight room. I'm like, let's get in, let's do our work, let's go home. And leave more for the next day rather than killing ourselves in the weight.
Right.
Yeah.
So you explain very well about how to improve the speed portion. You really just get out there and you just sprint it out.
Yep.
And you do it, but you don't overkill. Twice a week, 4 to 5 good 30-yard sprints, 2.5 to 3 minute break in between each one.
Yep.
And you're good there.
Yep.
All right. Now let's talk about how to really improve the agility portion, to change the direction. The guy who, does a double rip on me and I want to change directions really quickly, or he tries to get me off balance. So how do we improve those? I think that a lot of coaches are thinking, okay, man, the speed part, I can get that. I kind of understand that, but the agility, a lot of us want to improve it, and it's just lack of knowledge, or we're just doing what our coach did 20 years ago. And unfortunately they meant well, but there's much better ways of doing things.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the foundation I would like all your listeners to kind of get a grasp of first. if you want to be good at basketball and you're a little kid learning, you got to learn to handle the ball, right? Because if you can't handle the ball, you just are so limited as to what you can do offensively. So we have to have the foundation of dribbling and catching and shooting and passing and all those types of things. Athletically, to develop this ability to have good agility, there's 7 patterns that I like all my athletes, especially my basketball players, to become good at. So we put these in our warm-up and practice them every day. One is acceleration, just pure acceleration, short, maybe baseline to foul line, 15, 17 feet, that's it. Then we have sprinting, which we talked about. Then we have the lateral shuffle, which is our defensive shuffle. Then we have the lateral run, which a lot of coaches might hear it as a crossover, but they run laterally, but their chest stays square to their opponent.
Okay.
And then we have a back pedal. Then we have a hip turn. That's when you start to go by me. I open my hips really quick so I can shuffle with you or run with you. And then we have jumping. Those are the 7 patterns. If we practice those every day, only takes a couple minutes, but if you do it every day, it adds up. Now we have an athlete that has really good body and spatial awareness. Okay, so now I take an athlete that has good body, spatial awareness. Now I can teach them how to get in a good athletic stance, and I can start doing reactive drills with them day one. So let's say, Matt, you're standing in front of me at the top of the key, okay? And I'm the coach, and I'm out just maybe, near half court a little bit in front of you, and I point to your right. So I point to your right side, which would be heading down towards the right elbow of, off the top of the key there. And I want you, as soon as I point, I want you to do a hip turn and shuffle to the elbow as if you're trying to cut off the point guard driving by you. That's an example of some agility. You just did a hip turn, you turned it into a shuffle, then you cut them off at that elbow so they couldn't get into the lane. Now I can add to that and say, all right, Matt, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to point either right or left, hip turn, shuffle to the elbow, and then immediately we cover back to the top of the key in a closeout stance. So now you just not only cut my drive off, but you cut off a potential step back move, or maybe I kicked it back to a player that rotated on me. Maybe we're running, either a pass and cut offense, and if I drove, somebody fills behind me, and I go, and then you happen to be the one that had to close out. So I just gave you the ability to read my movement, react, which is agility, and then perform a shuffle or a lateral run, cut me off, and now recover back. So there's a really good, simple example. And here's another one. So let's say we got 15 boys on our team or 15 girls, or maybe we got varsity and JV together. So we're talking 22 to 25 players here. And we got them in the gym, partner them up. So now we just cut that in half. Maybe we'll say we have 12. We have 24 players. We got 12 that we're working with. The partners are resting. I'm going to take them. I'm going to put them right down the split line, okay, from the basket, right down the center of the foul lane, right up to half court. I get them all in a good defensive stance, and I tell them, I'm going to point right or left. You're going to shuffle to the rail line or to the lane line of the foul line, right? So, or that could be the elbow. And they're going to shuffle there and immediately recover back to the middle. Watch me again. If I point left, go there and back. And so now I just put them in a situation where they're reading, they're reacting, and they're using as much lateral speed to get to that rail line, and then as much quickness as possible to get back to the middle. Quickness usually has to do with change of direction. Speed just has to do with one direction. So we've got all these great things going on. The athlete's learning to read, learning to react, learning to use speed, learning to use change of direction ability, and they're getting the sense of how to anticipate my next move. They start to see maybe I lean a little bit and that tips something off, just like a player who tips their shoulder off, and now we read that. So yeah, that's an example of how we can start to develop agility. And now you can put any drill of speed, quickness, whatever you're going to work on into that type of agility training.
So would you suggest that coaches implement this in their everyday practices? Maybe start practice with what? I mean, could you do the 7 areas you mentioned? Could you do that in less than 15 minutes?
Oh, easily. Let me give a blueprint here. So this is what I do. I bought all my team these little 12-inch foam rollers. Okay, so they can roll. For those of you who don't know what a roller is, it's just like this styrofoam, dense styrofoam, and they roll on it. They can roll on a basketball for all I care, or a little tennis ball. It's just about helping the muscle, but that's what we would do. Once we did all that stuff, we would get up and I would start them on the 7 pattern. So I'd put them on the baseline. And I usually did them with partners. So one partner would go, and then once that group went, then I'd send the next group. And the first one might be, we're going to skip to the other end. We're going to do an A skip, nice and tall. We're going to strike the ground hard and working on that speed aspect of the 7 pattern. So we're sprinting. Even though we're not sprinting, we're working on the pattern of sprinting. The second one, we'll come back and we might do what we call 180-degree shuffles. So I face one sideline, I shuffle twice, flip my hips, face the other sideline, keep shuffling, and I keep alternating that till I get to the other end. So I get 2 shuffles, turn, 2 shuffles, 2 shuffles. I can work on forward turns or backward turns, depending on which way I want them to go. That's great to develop denial positions and recovery off denials. Then we'll go into the hip turn. So they all face the baseline, right? They're on the baseline, but they're facing the out of bounds wall. And I just simply point in one direction. They quickly open their hips, and then they'll perform like a quick acceleration to the foul line, jog it all the way to the other end of the court, and then I'll bring the next group down. So then we'll do some kind of in-place jump where they jump, land, maybe mimic getting a rebound and chinning the ball or something like that. Or I'll make them jump vertically, land, and then perform like a pivot, like they're going to outlet the ball. And so there's our jump pattern. Then we do a back pedal, and then I've got my 7 patterns. And it only took maybe 90 seconds to 2 minutes at most. And then we do our other warm-ups, which are going to consist having the ball. So we're going to do warm-ups with the ball, different types of skills with the ball. And then, Matt, here's the key. Now, while they're fresh, I'm going to spend roughly 2 minutes, maybe 3, and I'm going to pick a speed and or agility drill that I want to train, and I train it right then. And then we move on and go into our practice. And then the next day, I pick a new skill that I want to work on. And usually I try to make that speed and agility skill an emphasis for the day. So let's say I'm working full court press. Well, I'm going to choose an agility drill that's going to benefit us in that full court press. Or maybe I'm going to work on skip, pass, defense. So if I'm on the ball, you skip it over my head. Now I have to get at least 1, probably 2 feet in the lane to be in help. So we're going to use a hip turn, strong lateral run, get in the lane, point to both, see both. Now we'll actually drill that right after the warm-up. And now my players have context as to what the agility is actually doing to help us.
Okay, man, really, really good. I can't wait to re-listen to this and make notes. Okay, I want to talk about recovery.
Yeah.
For a minute. I believe this all goes hand in hand.
Yes.
You mentioned the sprints earlier, but I'm thinking about like at practice and how valuable is recovery in the process? I don't think it can be probably overstated. I think one thing we do at coaches is we push these kids to the very brink of using every ounce of energy. Yeah. And let's do it again the next day and the next day and the next day. Or we just don't give enough breaks at practice or when they're doing their speed agility workout. So how do we figure out how long a break to get? Or does it go back to what you said earlier to 2.5 to 3 minutes, depending on if your maximum physical exertion? Coaches, I have to take a minute here to brag on my good friends at Dr. Dish. Dr. Dish is unbelievable. Hundreds of drills you can do with the Dr. Dish shooting machine. They track your players shooting. You can track your team shooting. The players have the individual app. It is so user-friendly. But I want to make sure you know how you can get a Dr. Dish using their 1-year, no-interest payment plan. That's what I did. I'm in a small school, not a large budget. I paid half up front, and I paid the remainder over the next year at no interest. So contact Dr. Dish, mention this podcast, receive an extra discount, and they will take care of you. Now, back to the podcast.
Exactly. And here's the critical thing, and you know this as well as anybody because you're a coach and you realize the value of gym time. We don't have ultimate gym time. We got other teams that have to get in there. We got other events. One of the schools that I was at, the band was like the king of the school. And it was like, when they wanted the gym, it was like everybody else was out. So I'm like, so we had to make sure we got work done. So let me give you an example. If I know I'm going to work a speed day, which means I want high maximal speed, long rest, I built in little activities in between the rest. So if I'm going to rest 3 minutes, we certainly can't waste 3 minutes sitting there and resting. So what we would do is they would sprint. As soon as they're done, hustle to your basket, get your foul shots in. Or we would, after that, they would get their partner and we would do a type of I'm real big on pass entries, like entries into the post. So we would work on the footwork of how to get the ball into the post. And we would do that for a little bit. Then they would go and do their next rep. So I could get a sprint skill in and then work on a fundamental basketball skill that's really important, like a foul shot. The foul shot doesn't compete with my sprint. It doesn't fatigue my legs. Pass entries, really important skill, but it doesn't compete with my legs, so I'm not tired going into the next sprint. We could work on maybe a shell drill really quick. If I've got 2 minutes, get the girls quickly, just tell them ahead of time, as soon as you're done, everybody get in a shell. We're going to work on our rotations on a shell defensive drill or whatever it is, or offensive drill. Boom, go do the next one. And that way we never waste a second of time, but I always have it planned. So my practice plan has a column of skill. Okay, now what's the drill? That's the next column. So if I'm working on shooting, well, what's the drill I want to do? Maybe catch and shoot, drive, penetrate, kick and shoot, or off the drill. And then I have a column of comments. How do I want that drill to look? Do I need cones? Do I need tennis balls? Do I need, a chair? Do I need a blocking pad? So I make sure my coaches and myself and even my captains know this is where we're going. Be ready. Let's go. No wasted time. And that way, in an hour and a half, we can get a ton of stuff done.
No, that's good. I want to talk about, and I'm sorry if I'm all over the place here, but please. Every time. All right. One thing coaches say a lot, and I say a lot, is about guys or girls being quicker off the floor.
Yeah.
Jumping quicker, better reaction time. How do we improve that? And then you may have hit it already a little bit, but they're really just going for that rebound, or even, it's funny. You see people like the jump ball. It's like that player jumped a second and a half behind the other player, so what are some ways we can get players to just get off the floor quicker?
Yeah. So first of all, the foundation is always some kind of strength. So if you've got a young player or even an older player that's just not very strong, you might have to get them a little stronger. But let's say that's not the case. Science doesn't lie. So science is going to tell us that a muscle and a tendon, okay, so let's say the Achilles tendon, which everybody knows what that is. That's what Kevin Durant and the older Isaiah Thomas and Kobe, that's what ended, it didn't end all of their careers, but it slowed them down for a little bit. So that Achilles tendon is a tremendous energy transfer. So how can I train that? Well, if we look at what makes us jump quick, we have to do activities that get us on and off the ground quick with minimal knee and hip bending, okay? Dennis Rodman, for those of you who remember, Dennis Rodman was a very quick jumper. He didn't jump higher than all the other guys. He just jumped quicker. He got there faster. So things like jump roping. Jump roping are very like tap, 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 tap. It's not like load, slow, and push. It's pop, pop, pop. Line jumps. So if you put your players on the line and you say, hey, jump forward and back over that line as fast as you can in 3 to 5 seconds. Okay, that's elastic energy. If we give them what we call pogo jumps. So coach, imagine you had your team and you put them on the baseline padded wall. Well, usually right above the padded wall is like a wood frame, right? The border. So most kids can jump and touch that. So we're going to take 2 hands above our head like we're going to rebound, and we're going to jump and tap that with our fingers. As soon as we land, we're going back up. And so what I would do is say to my players, I'm only giving you 5 seconds. I want to see who can get the most. But if you don't touch it, it doesn't count. So now they learn to jump extremely quick. And then I can raise it. I can say, now you got to get above it, because there's usually a little ledge where all the kids would stick their gum and stuff. They couldn't see it. Yeah. And then you try to get above it and hit the concrete wall. So now we do that. Now they're jumping higher, but they're jumping quicker than everybody else. So by training it, there's no trick. It's just like shooting foul shots. If I want to get good, I got to put time in. Quick jumping is the same thing. The key to quick jumping is don't bend as much. Develop great feet, ankles, and calves. little bit of knee bend, a little bit of hip bend, but pop off the ground really fast. And if you build it over 2, 3, 4 weeks, all of a sudden you'll see your players starting to pop off the ground much quicker. It's a skill. It's a skill. And then the science behind it, we start to let that Achilles tendon start to store and release energy really fast. And that's the goal.
No, that's really, really good, because I think what I'm learning as I'm talking to you is like, there's just no shortcuts.
Yeah.
You want to be faster. You want to be quicker. You want to do this stuff. It doesn't take 6 days a week of work or 7 days a week. It can take twice or 3 times for 2 to 3 minutes at a time.
Yep.
But consistency is the key of doing it for 4 weeks and 6 weeks. And when the season comes, not to let that just fade away.
That's right. Yep. If it's important to do, you got to find a way to get it in. And so that's over time. We all do this, right? We all put too many offensive plays in and too many defensive. And then as the season goes, we start trimming the fat, right? And we get down to what makes it. Teaching speed is the same way. If you noticed, I didn't say anything that cost a dime. I didn't talk about any kind of equipment. You give me a cone, like, the little cones and stuff. That's all I need. Just give me cones. But if I'm on a basketball court, I don't even need that, because I can use the lines. But if I'm out on a field, sometimes I need cones. Other than that, it's just train what you want to improve. So if I want speed, I have to train speed. If I want conditioning, okay, I'll train conditioning, less rest. If I want big, powerful, high jumping, I'm going to teach it a little bit more ground contact, a little deeper bend. But if I want to be a quick jumper, which I should want to be both, a big high jumper and a quick jumper, I have to train that. Train them separate from each other. Fit it into your practice in these little bit of bursts and spurts of time. You're in good shape. The kids will get it over 6 weeks. You're going to have a different athlete.
And I think one thing that, as I'm realizing about myself, we try to do everything. We try to do agility, speed, and conditioning in 40. No, you need to separate those. Conditioning should be completely different than what your speed workout looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
The kid may leave exhausted. They may run a mile. They may run 2 miles. I mean, you're not saying that there's no time, there's no place for getting in a few miles before the season starts, or you just limit that or recognize the goal of it maybe.
Yeah, I would not recommend it. I would never do it, because I can get the benefits. And that's what I was talking about earlier. If I want my kids good at running mileage, well, yeah, I'll run it, but I have no need for it as a basketball coach. So I want them to be fast. I can get them in shape other ways. So if we were to run 2 miles, their heart rate is going to get at a level where they're probably somewhere 150, 160 beats per minute. Well, or sometimes even lower than that. I can keep them at that level doing basketball drills, doing, ball wraps around my head, around my waist, passing, doing full court dribbling drills at, a less than maximal speed, but maintain that work for about 20 minutes. I'm going to get the same aerobic benefit, but I just improved skill, accuracy of handling a ball, the quickness of handling a ball. I just had way more bang for my buck than spending time running mileage, which I gained nothing in terms of improving my basketball player. So that's what I mean by you got to weigh it. But if the kid, is a distance runner, of course you're going to do that. But our kids aren't distance runners. Yep. They're short burst runners.
Yep. No, that's good. Well, Coach, how can people who want to use Lead Task Speed and Agility or connect with you on a deeper level, how can they connect with you? I know you've got some curriculums out there. Correct me if I'm wrong there. I was on your website earlier.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, so I appreciate that. So if they go to leadtaft.com, they can pretty much find what's going on. And we even have connections to, if they go to @LeadTaft, that'll get me pretty much any kind of, Twitter or any of the social medias. And then coming up soon, we're about 5 to 6 weeks away from launching what's called a Certified Basketball Speed Specialist Level 1 course. And that's going to be taking all these movements, all the different type of movements, very specific to basketball, like what type of shuffle do I use if I'm in a particular type of denial? Maybe you only want to deny so the opponent can't catch the ball on the foul line, or on the 3-point line. You want them catching it at 28 feet. Okay, well, there's a certain type of technique we use versus if we're full denial. So that's what this course is about. But there's a whole plethora of different types of movements we're going to teach. So the people that go through this course have a really good understanding and can teach it to their teams, but also go off on their own and teach it to other coaches and other teams if they choose to go that route. So so if people want to check that out, that's basketballspeedspecialist.com, and they can get on the wait list. And we got a special guest, little gift for them there as well. So, but yeah, thank you for allowing me to share that.
No problem. And again, guys, it's at Leaf Taft on Twitter. Well, Coach, thanks so much for coming on. I learned a ton in this 45-minute conversation that hopefully will translate in how I do things a little differently with my team in the fall, or actually in our preseason stuff we're doing now. Any last words of wisdom or thoughts to coaches who want to improve their team speed and agility, or any last note or anything you want to say?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for inviting me, Matt. This was great. You do a great job of this. This was very fun for me. So the one thing I would say, and as coaches, we all fall into this, and I have many times, and I got to check myself on this a lot, is be patient with development. Okay, development, it takes time. Okay, that's why not everyone is able to make the WNBA or the NBA. Okay, that's the best there is. If we all did the same thing and all had the same ability, we'd all be fighting for that job. But that's not the way it is. So take your time. Speed takes time. Dribbling the basketball really confidently with your non-dominant hand takes time. Shooting a really good jumper takes time. So don't be in a rush. Give smaller doses, less information, and really zero in. So you and the athletes, your players on that day, leave practice feeling like they had a win versus having 25 different things that they have to think about and then walking out of this saying, I'm not sure what I got better at today. So I've learned zero in and then just come back the next day and win that day and then win the next day. And I think you're going to have a lot more success with this speed and agility.
Well, that's good. Thanks so much for sharing that. And guys, check out all Coach Taft has to offer, especially that curriculum. That's like groundbreaking right there. You're one of the first, maybe the first, to offer something basketball specific for this.
I think so. I think that's why we're excited. And I've been talking about doing it for years. And finally, over this last year, we started working on it and breaking down. I work with several professional teams and all, and a lot of the questions they give me, like how to cover, like drop coverage on a pick and roll. So we teach them how to use footwork that is all inclusive when somebody comes off a pick and roll. What does a post player do on what we call a waddle shuffle? Okay, that's a different type of shuffle. So we really made this very specific. So coaches have things they can work on. Just like, Matt, if you were to teach a player who caught the ball and you want them to do maybe an inside out dribble, well, you give it a name. It's an inside out dribble. Or if you put them in the post and you want them to do a spin to the baseline versus a drop step to the baseline based on how the defense is guarding you, you have to tell them that. They have to hear the name, and that's what tells them what to do. Defensively, we just say, hey, get in a stance and play hard. Well, what we've done is
isn't that the answer to everything? Just play hard. Isn't that solve all our problems? So if you're playing hard, I'm playing hard. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic. But that's funny you said that.
I think two things. I think if you just tell them to play hard and pick faster parents. If you pick faster parents and get their genes, then you're gonna.
Yeah, shouldn't we, before we put a kid on the team, have their mom and dad walk in and say, okay, right. Mom's 5'10", dad's 6'3", you're on. Mom's 5'2", right. Dad's 5'6". Let's just do it the old-fashioned way.
That's right.
Well, Coach, thanks a lot. Man, that was really good. Let's stay connected. I look forward to following everything you do, and let's stay connected. Maybe we can do one of these, once a year or so, and find out everything you're doing.
Love it. Thank you, Matt. Best of luck with everything.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You got it.
Thanks for listening to the United Basketball and Leadership Podcast. Please take a moment to leave us a review and also leave a comment about what you enjoyed most about today's guest. I hope you'll join us on our next episode.